What is you? I mean the you that you feel you are. The part of you that's really in control. The you-est you could possibly be, the you part of you that decides what you do. Your command center. Welcome to the first rant of Martin Talks Brain in my new YouTube channel, Martin's Midnight Rants. Your brain was created by billions of years of evolution, according to the book On the Origin of Species, published by Charles Darwin in 1859. You may have heard of it. In the year 1835, Darwin famously traveled to the Galapagos Islands, where he studied birds and the evolution of certain features like beaks or talons. Maybe you already knew that. But does this explain everything? Is it the whole picture? If humans are so smart, why do they act so irrationally sometimes? Are they not in control? Are you in control? But are you? Have you never done anything knowingly that was against your own interest? And if you have, why? I know a guy that has a theory.
The thing that's always, I've always wondered at is how human beings, as such rational individuals, can be so irrational at the same time. How do we have these compulsive feelings to do what we do in spite of our rational nature?
This is Dr. Paul D. MacLean, wondering the big, juicy question. If we are so smart, why are we irrational? In my opinion, Paul MacLean is one of the most underrated voices in the field of neuroscience. He created a model of the brain called the Triune brain theory, which featured the brain as three separate systems, or brains as he called them, that added on over time. There was a reptile brain responsible for survival instincts like fight or flight or deep feelings of lust. A mammal brain responsible for more complex emotions like compassion or envy. And a human brain responsible for human logic, deeper thinking, and simulating the future. The key to MacLean's research is how the brains don't work well with each other. And as much as the logical thinking part of the brain would like to think it's in control, MacLean claims that there is a clear hierarchy within the brains, and that the older reptilian brain can overrule the newer brains for its own agenda.
I would say human beings are governed by their emotions. I thought this was the probable explanation, but we've gone a little deeper since then, and I would say the reptile is a little more important in this business. The reptile, it seems, does what it has to do, and that the emotions, more often than not, it seems to me, are merely reflectors rather than determinants of action.
Why is Paul MacLean's theory from the 1960s about the brain so compelling? Because it makes sense. Just like evolution, the traits that help self-preservation survive, it makes sense that evolution would prioritize survival and reproduction, and that the system in the brain responsible for this would use the newly developed higher intelligence as a tool for its own ends.
The triune brain model that we've talked about, people refer to it as MacLean's model. I counter by saying it's nature's model, because you can demonstrate it so easily, the corresponding structures as far as the anatomy and the chemistry, the whole shebang, right?
Why is this so profound? It triggers a realization of exactly what each one of us is dealing with on the inside. A realization that the real battle is learning how to control your own subconscious, that's ultimately in control of you.
The things that we discover, it seems, are always so close to our chest we can't see the things that I thought I discovered about the difference between reptiles and mammals was lying right there on a plate in front of all of us all the time.
As it turns out, several neuroscientists today have written pieces discrediting some of the main arguments made by Paul MacLean's Triune brain model. Daniel Toker, a neuroscientist at UCLA, wrote an article called "You Don't Have a Lizard Brain." In the article, he lays out his case that the new brain structures didn't simply emerge on top of the old ones, and that the mammalian neocortex isn't a completely new structure like MacLean thought it was, but instead a modification of the reptilian cortex. He then shares an image with models of various animal-type brains. Another article written by Peter Farley from Yale Medicine in 2008 called "A Theory Abandoned but Still Compelling" claims that Terence Deacon, PhD, and an expert on the evolution of human cognition at the University of California, Berkeley, has shown through consequent research that MacLean's basic model, his hats on top of hats view, was ultimately mistaken, and that his research was consistent with Daniel Toker's view of modifications of older brains rather than addition of new structures. As MacLean passed away in 2007, the year before this was written, Deacon also mentions, "His death represents the passing of an era, because he was really the model of the move towards understanding the brain in evolutionary terms. A lot of our contemporary advances ride on top of his work, even though, in hindsight, it was misleading. That happens a lot in the sciences, and we don't often give credit to those false starts that really push us along the way." Okay. So maybe the hats on top of hats aspect of MacLean's theory is wrong. Maybe new structures didn't emerge, and that lizards do have some form of a cortex. Maybe the names he gave the brains were misleading. Maybe we don't have lizard brains, and maybe other details of his theory were inaccurate. But what about the most basic of realizations from it? It doesn't seem to disprove his claim that the brain works as three separate systems, and that those three systems don't work well with each other, and that there is a clear hierarchy between them. It doesn't change the realization that the conscious part of the brain is not calling all the shots. Michael Stevens, in his YouTube series Mindfield, conducts a relevant experiment. Mindfield is available with YouTube Red, which, by the way, I highly recommend getting, even if it's just for the series. Michael Stevens is absolutely brilliant. Many of you know this already. For this experiment, he brings in neurobiologist Moran Cerf. Cerf has an EEG, a device that measures brain waves. The EEG is connected to a box with two buttons on the top that light up. After Michael securely attached the EEG device to his head, he spent a few minutes randomly pushing the two buttons. During this time, the box is calibrated to recognize specific patterns in Michael's brainwaves. After the box was calibrated, the real test began. Michael must decide which button to press, and press that button before the lights come on. The problem is that as soon as he chooses which button to press, his brainwaves alert the device and the lights come on. Michael found the process frustrating and was unable to press either button before the lights came on. "Eventually, the box can know what I'm about to do before even I do," he explained as he noticed the buttons lighting up before he was even aware that he had made a decision. If your subconscious knows what you're going to do before you do it, is it really your decision? Or do you just think it's your decision? "The implications of this are chilling," he said. Now, Michael Stevens' experiment with Moran Cerf by no means proves any of Dr. Paul MacLean's triune brain theory correct. But it does make you wonder, maybe he was onto something. Maybe we're not in as much control of ourselves as we think we are. Maybe we have unconscious brains that are pulling the strings totally undetected, using the awesome power of our neocortex to invent compelling excuses to justify our clearly unproductive behavior. When you throw into the mix all of these biases that act like mind viruses, like the confirmation bias, or the self-serving bias, or negativity bias, or the familiarity bias, and dozens of other biases that we have running on our minds all the time, it really does paint a dark picture about the type of control that we actually do have over ourselves. But I don't want you to give up hope, because just remember, us humans are so amazing that when our neocortex is properly channeled, the limitation of its imagination, the limitation of our imagination, is endless.
And that's a big place.
Thank you for watching my first rant of Martin Talks Brain. If you learned something of value here, please share, like, and subscribe to this video. If there's enough interest, I will make more content. If this rant really blew your mind with major realizations, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Until next time.